And let's then continue with a little bit another topic, which is not directly related to the nutrient contents, or maybe it may be related as well. I don't know. So I am not an breeder, and I have not been involved either in breeding, but I have been working with cereals, and I have seen a lot of landraces, and I have also been looking at old pictures from cereal fields and how they used to look before. And now we have a climate that is changing again and changing a lot. And many of the sorts that we are using, they have been selected according to line breeding. So the breeders have been, of course, crossbreeding as well during these last 100 years, or just making selections in the beginning, and then multiplied those cereals that have had a nice and good characteristica that we could use in agriculture and that we could benefit of. And if you look at old pictures of cereals, this one is actually from Estonia, from an old photo from Hiiumaa, or painting, and it's very typical to see these cereal fields that are very uneven, and it may be uneven due to the fact that in rye especially, that they are making bushes, and the secondary and the third and fourth straw is always shorter. It could also be that there just is even if it was a cereal that made only one straw per one seed, that there is a kind of variation or some kind of adaptation to the soil conditions or whatever that makes different straw growing in different heights. So a kind of cooperation perhaps, and flexibility towards each other. I don't know how to call it now. And I started to think about plasticity. So the word itself, it means this adaptability of an organism to change in its environment. And I know that researchers have been looking a lot on this distance between the axe and the flag leaf node. And I was in 2018 in Denmark on the Nordic Heritage Conference, where we had breeders from Germany who were breeding for organic farming, and they were talking about also this that the diseases could jump from the flag leaf up to the axe if it's too short the distance. I have not been thinking or looking at that anymore, but I wanted to, as we have now so many landraces that we are reproducing in Finland, and I wanted to have a look anyway on these straw length between the axe and the flag leaf node, and especially then looking at the variation of that. And we did it very simply. So we were measuring these straws and the distance in centimeters, and I want here to say that these results are not representative. They are not statistically verified, and there are not enough measurements from all of these sorts. So what I'm showing you now is just something, and perhaps something to think about. And when the climate is now changing, it may be that we should or could think more about which are the difficulties, or maybe which could be the advantages of having plants that are making bushes, or then maybe not. So first we can take a look here on these barleys. And if you look at the text up here, then for example, Ingrid, it is an old Swedish variety of barley. And I have now in this same table both 2-row barleys and 4-row barleys. I tried to look on them separately also, but for me just now I just put them in the same table. Those who are gray here, they have less samples. So this N50, it means the number we measured. So in Ingrid, we measured 50 straw. We do not know if we measured the first straw, if it was making a bush, if it was the first or the second straw. So the variation, it may be also just showing a variation between the second and the first straw. Those with gray here, it's this Fin S, it's a Landrace, had only 20 measurements. Joutsenkaula, which is Svanhals, or from Sweden, it had only 10. And some Vanilje, for example, it's a modern 2-row barley in Finland, and we had only 7 of that. And also very low amount here of Jorma and Halikon Ohra. So the green one, it shows the average length in this from this flag leaf node to the axe, so the average length of the measurements. And in the blue line, you can see then the difference between the minimum and maximum of this distance. Yeah, I put it up here now, this bulk, because I cannot put it away. So what we could see here is that, well, I don't know if we can see anything here. We can see that Vershininon, which is a 4-row barley that I have brought home from Russia, from Arkhangelsk region, where it was grown in a very remote village. It has the highest average of this straw length, not the whole straw, but this upper part of the straw. And it has also the highest variation between this minimum and maximum. So it could either be that it was making secondary straws, or then and we have cut them, and that's why it has the highest between max and minimum. But I don't think that this is the case. I was growing this myself, and also most of these samples are grown in Estonia last summer, where it was very bad conditions. I have very bad soils. There has been no fertilizing on this soil. So I kind of think that I have got the worst results that I could really get for all of these cereals. But Vanilje, for example, it was grown in Mustiala, on Mustiala soil. So even in these soil conditions, they are not you cannot compare them. They have not been grown on the same soil. We can also see that Tammi, which is an old 4-row cultivar from 1937 from Finland, it has also very high difference between this minimum and maximum length of the straw, as has actually Joutsenkaula as well. So if we look at Halikon Ohra, it has a very high, quite high average of straw length, but the difference is not high at all, or much lower than in Tammi and Vershininon, which could mean that perhaps Halikon Ohra, it is a breed from 1924, that it has been quite much selected into it, or I'm not quite sure now about the breeding history. It may be that this has also been selected from, for example, from one or very few axes that have been then multiplied. So you get something that is very similar to each other. So it's not a clone, of course, but anyway, it started from a very narrow point of view. Jorma naked barley is a Finnish naked barley. You find it here in the other end here. It's something middle, a little bit more than 10 centimeters in this straw length. But the variety between max and minimum length, it's very low. It's the lowest of all of these barleys that I have here. And Jorma was then most likely, it has been found a naked barley. There have been found some naked barley, maybe mutations in Finnish landrace barleys, and it has been multiplied then from there. And this Jorma naked barley, it's the only naked barley that we have in Finland. And this multiplication work was done already in 1970s when it was found. Then they took it separately and it has been then multiplied. And it has an ability also to make, it wants all the time to make shells. So you can keep it as naked barley perhaps for 10 years or 15 years, but the amount of these shelled barleys are growing all the time. And at some point you have to start again by hand sorting it merely then from zero. So I'm not going to say anything more about this. We look at einkorn, emmer and spelta. And here we have from Swiss einkorn. And then we have Gotland einkorn. And then we have Folkärna spelt, which is from Sweden, and Gotland spelt, and only one white emmer. And here we can see that in both Gotland spelt and in Folkärna spelt, then they are pretty high in their straws. This, again, the upper part of this straw between this flag leaf nod and the axe. And at the same time, they have also more difference between the maximum and minimum length. And this can be, of course, again, because it makes a bush, this Gotland spelt is making bushes, and we have just cut here the second and the first axis. So of this Swiss einkorn, we had pretty low amount of measurements, only 10 of that, whereas all the others here we have had between 50 and 60. Now in this wheat we have a lot of measurements, but very low amount of modern wheat. And actually in this wheat we cannot see that much differences. They are nearly all more or less the same. And also due to this very low amount of measurements. So I wanted to show to you anyway, but you can see that these modern cultivars, which are with blue dots, they are all over this scale. To the far right, you have Kimmo. It's a spring wheat from 1941, and it has been breeded from a Russian population wheat. And then it was still also crossed with another wheat. So it has perhaps a little bit a different background. It never really became very much grown in Finland, this Kimmo. But we are also now trying to reproduce it. And most of these modern varieties here are also autumn wheat. So the spring wheats, I have put an S mark down here, and lady we already heard about. It's a modern spring wheat, whereas then Lohja, Ruso and Tähtiä are old cultivars. Lohja is a landrace, Rusutjärvi is a landrace, and then yes, Kimmo is an old cultivar as well. Then we have oats. And here we had also pretty good amount of measurements that we made. Only this Jokikylä, Ryhti and Matti we had very few of. Matti is a modern oat, and Ryhti is from 1970. And Ryhti's breeding history is that it has been treated by Röntgen. then to the right you can see Finnish naked oats. We have only one Finnish naked oats, and it is under multiplication or propagation for the time being. And here you can see that the difference between maximum and minimum length is the highest in these Finnish naked oats. But also then Tammi, which is an old oats from 1938, it has also quite a big difference between this maximum and minimum length here. If you look at the black oats, because I have been always thinking that the black oats in Finland are pretty much like landraces, and that there have not been we have black oats that have been cultivated also, but Ylitornio black oats, there are several accessions in the gene bank of them, and also Savitaipale black oats. Savitaipale is not in the gene bank. It has been kept up by growing by hobby farmers and also small amounts, yes, of it all the time, and it never have ended up in the gene bank. So both these Ylitornio black oats that we have now in Mustiala and this Savitaipale black oats, they actually, if you look at the blue curve here, then they are located there somewhere in the middle, or even from the middle to this lower amount, which perhaps may be that they have genetically been down to very small amounts, and then again it had been reproduced from a pretty small amounts. But yeah. In rye, actually, we did not do these measurements, but I had one bush of rye of each. So one bush, it was only like 2 to 4 straw. And those, I also, just for fun, I wanted to see that how long is this or how short it is. And Reta is a population variety. You can see it here in the middle, and Granat is a population variety from Poland. So they are pretty similar, this Reta and Granat. But here on the right corner here, you can see that Ivo and Aunus and also the Myttal and Ruis are then all here in having a little bit more this difference. So this is only in one bush now, so it's in one grain, one plant. So if we would like to continue doing these measurements with rye, then we should, for example, take only the main straw from the rye, I think 1 measurements per bush, and then we could compare them to each other, and then again grown on the same field. These rye that you see here, they have all been cultivated then on the same field in Mustiala this year. And then I started to think, then we know that land race grains, that they have managed better in this very bad climates, if it's very dry or opposite as well. And I was thinking that what is it then that make these land races? Is it just that they are genetic more diverse? Of course, we could get good answers by doing DNA analysis to them, but the farmers also need to have something else. We don't have these DNA analysis possibilities to do that. And I was starting to think about this sprouting or this bush making factor that many land races, they make these bushes of them. That is it this bush that make them, that they have the ability to do these bushes that make them more climate resilient. And then if we would grow land races that are doing these bushes more, and if they would manage better than in very harsh climates, then how can we harvest them if some of the spikes get ready later? This is, for example, a problem here also in Gotland spelt, that all the axes are not getting ready at the same time. And in old days, it was not a problem because they were cutting them and having them maturing afterwards on the field. So we could actually ask the question also that can we imitate the old way of harvesting with letting the grains mature after the harvesting by using, for example, some kind of new technological solutions. There are many grasses that still are, I think, Timotei and I don't know this Nurminata grass, how it is in English, they are the seed cultivation of these. They are cut the whole length of it, and then they are letting them mature on the fields afterwards. But then there is also a greater loss of yield. So if the weather will become even worse and we will get even less yields, then it may be that we have to think about new technological solutions for perhaps using then plants and perhaps then even use these plants that mature in different stage, because they are then making these bushes and they get these first and second and third straws. Or should we just start to make new selections then from the start again? That's also a possibility. If we want to have one grain and one straw, then should we then start to do this job from the beginning? And here it would be interesting to hear also your ideas about this, and that which is the way, because we really quickly we need this new materials that are suitable both for organic farming, but will give us how to say, a yield that we can be sure that we get this yield even if we have very bad climate. Now in Finland we are cultivating at the most north in Europe, and we have much more influence. We are influenced much more by the climate, I think, than in many other countries. Even if southwestern Finland this year had a pretty similar climate that it was in Pandivere in Estonia. So the very hot weather, it was like sitting on Kymenlaakso and Pandivere. I would also say special thank you to the following students at Hämeen University of Applied Sciences, as they helped me in doing these measurements. So Alqvist Hokkanen, Kaunistola Savolainen, Suutari Syrjä 2 times, and Tiuttu. And now I would be happy to hear your thoughts about this. It is the genetical way we should go by doing genetical breeding, or how should we continue? Maria is asking, are the black coats Avena sativa or strigose? I have both in this reproduction. I have both Avena strigose, and I have also some Avena sativa. I have to check it now. I cannot say to Avena sativa, yes, is the black one. But we have also some strigose, I think, in the multiplication. Will reaper binder harvesting with sheaves, sheaves left in the field to mature it up to 10 days, as in outer hybrids, solve the issue on uneven ripening? Yes, this is how it was done, Maria, before. So, but again, there is like a higher possibility of getting losses by doing it in this way. So it may be that we need some kind of new technology. But I would like to hear, as I don't know if there still are some representatives from ETKI also in Estonia. Do you have some comments? Bulat, you are also here. So would it be easier than just to go the genetic way in getting some new cereals, but how fast will we get them, because we really need them very fast? Yeah, Magnus is commenting also on this, that we are doing these new selections in these old weeds he's doing to get away from those ripening later. And that is like, that is a real problem, and with the landraces is that the uneven ripening of them. And it's really a problem if we will have these bushes, because then it's even more. But even without this bushing of the landraces, then we can have also uneven ripening and ripening anyway. And Magnus continue, and those natural crossings that otherwise prove to be bad, for example, get diseases. That's right. So in Finland, it has always been the problem of that everything is too late for us because we have so short growing season. So we need really something that is very fast, and we of course would like as a farmer to have something that is ripening and maturing all at the same time. And this we cannot get. Maybe we will find some of the Landraces is that we have these all abilities in it, and they will make it. Magnus is telling still, we have not seen so big difference in bushing between varieties. In our rye test, Reetta had the biggest bushing, okay? And also bushing, it may be something that is related to the sort or the landrace, but it can also be, it is also influenced, as you know, by the climatic conditions. I mean, if you have a winter and some part of the cereals is not managed, and then those who are managing, when they get more space, they may also be bushing then a lot. So it's not only okay. Test zone was relatively late zone, says Magnus. That was in rye. Yeah. So there are a lot of things to consider in this, and then in what direction do we want to go in our breeding of cereals, and which are the needs then for the organic sector and beyond the organic sector, I should say. So I don't think that the organic sector will totally solve all our problems here in the grain cultivation up here in these cold climates of the north. So it may be to be taking totally new methods into use as well. I still want to show you that all these materials you will find here on our homepage, and I'm going to send a link to the homepage, and here is Tuotokset, which means, and here you find this webinar, and here are already now available the presentations, and I'm going to add here then the records as well. And please order our newsletter. It is available in 3 languages, in Swedish, English, and Finnish. And we are only going to send out 2 newsletters annually. And the first newsletter, it was sent out today, and I'm going to link the link to this newsletter also into this page, so you can find it. So thank you very much.